Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. I'm Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. We have a very special Globinar today. There's actually two of these, one today and one on Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, both. And you'll find out more why that's a significant time with two extraordinary leaders. I'll introduce them in a moment. The topic of today is Lead from Anywhere, How Mindset Drives Global Results with Blaine Bartlett and Doland, and the famous Doland, Doland White. Both of them are famous, and both of them are extraordinary. We had last week a 5-day coursework, 1 hour each, of just amazing information from them. And I learned a lot from them, and I learned how purposeful and mindful and powerful the leadership that they possess is for us within the global tribe. And so what we thought we would do is give you a little bit more today, a similar program on Monday, and then they're going to be talking about some of the things that we're planning for the future. Really appreciate both of you gentlemen for coming in today. And in the case of Blaine Bartlett, he's got over 4 decades of experience working with some of the most successful companies in the world. He's globally recognized, and he is an authority on leadership, and he's counted on by many in the world. One of the more significant things that he, other than his 5 books, he's on a number of different board of directors, and you might note that one of those is called the Unstoppable Foundation. And so those of you in Global Chamber know Global and Unstoppable. So he's kindred of our own spirit. He's very well connected globally, and he's connected to the global tribe. The second leader who you'll meet today, if you haven't already, is Doland. He has 3 decades, which normally would seem like a lot, but it's only 3. And it's extraordinary 3. It's been at the C-level. He excels in cultivating teams, and not only getting them aligned, but getting them aligned to what's important, like their mission. So, gentlemen, I turn it over to you. Thank you for the collaboration. Thank you for your support. And thank you for sharing a little bit here today to the Global Tribe.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. It's just a thrill for Dolan and I to be here. And when we began this conversation, actually began this journey, it began with a conversation about the mission of Global Chamber. And from an educational perspective, it became very obvious to me, and I'll say obvious, just from the standpoint of, how do we educate leaders to actually function highly effectively in today's world? And one of the things that we've learned, and I'll just speak for myself here, that it's not enough just to be a better leader. I have to actually be a different kind of leader in today's world. We've got 6 generations that are in the workforce today. I mean, that's never in the history of mankind have we had 6 generations occupying a workforce. How you actually lead these disparate cohorts is a big challenge. And that's one of the things that we spend a lot of time with, Dolan and I, in our work together with our clients. And so, just bringing that notion to the table, Doug was interested in it, and he mentioned we did a challenge, kind of a leadership challenge last week. It was kind of an introduction to some of the concepts that we actually work with, which is kind of positioned us to where we are today with you folks. And we're going to be looking at how we can partner more effectively with Global Chamber to enhance the effectiveness of your leadership development processes. So that's kind of my introduction from me. Dolan, why don't you just say a few words, and then we'll just jump into what we've got here, because I want to respect the timeline.
Sure, I'll go very short. Blaine is clearly older than I am, hence the additional decades that are under his belt. So I'll start there. Generally, when we talk about each other, and I promised him last night that I would say these things, that he's referred to as distinguished, I'm referred to as seasoned. I'm not sure why we have that differentiation, but that seems to track us wherever we go. Um, it's an honor to be here with you and have the conversation. I think one of the things that's very important for, and probably more important today than ever before, and we hear that, and that's a kind of, can be a little bit of a trite statement, is global leadership. And Blaine and I focus on the hardest part of global leadership, which is mindset.
Yeah.
And that's where we spend all of our time. And having built and sold and led companies, my personal experience is success without mindset just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
At least not durable success. So we're going to talk a little bit about that concept today. We're going to show you a model that we talk into. This will be a working session today. It won't be just Blaine and I talking to you. We're actually, after a few minutes, going to give you an assessment, self-assessment to take based on some of the things that we talk about. And then we'll come back from that, have a little Q&A, and then share with you some ideas on how we help you and help the Global Chamber and reach out to its goals, because it's a very, very interesting opportunity, and Global Chamber has a very unique spot where it can completely set itself apart and lead global leadership at this point. So, on that note, I'm going to share my screen
Yep. Let's jump into that.
since we came with slides.
Can't waste them.
I know. And of course, I'm going to ask the usual question. Can you see my slides? Everybody see that? If you can, please give me an affirmation, a thumbs up or a yes, or all right. I think I see Jim Cook saying by the look on
Yes,
this, we got
yes,
slides.
we can
Okay.
see it. We can see it.
We got
Good.
slides.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. All right, thanks, Comey. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the deck, and we're gonna talk about how mindset drives global results. That's the topic for today. And I'm gonna go down to you know what? It's gonna give me a problem if I don't reveal the slides. So
No, just yeah.
I'm gonna
You
go,
could just click it and go.
I'm gonna click it and go.
Yeah,
There we go.
there we go. Defining
As
mindset.
you can tell,
Okay.
this is where we are extremely well-honed professionals when it comes to running PowerPoint decks. So,
Mindset. We got a whole model we've developed around this, but just very specifically and very briefly here, what is a mindset? I mean, we hear that word bandied about all the time today, and
yeah.
a lot of people don't really grasp the full import of what it is. And it's very simple here. It's a habituated, and I mean habituated, set of beliefs, attitudes, and assumptions through which an individual perceives and interacts with the world. There is no reality out there. It's all interpreted. Okay, that's essentially what we're looking at here. And it's that interpreting process that we want to understand and actually work with. Studies, and we can cite a number of different studies that point to this, but 95, by the time we are around 30 years of age, an adult, late 20s, early 30s, 95% of our behavior becomes hardwired. And what I mean by that is it's become informed by habituated beliefs, attitudes, and assumptions.
Yeah.
So we're not really cognizant of what drives behavior. And this is really important when we're looking at how we implement change in an organization, how we look at how we grow an organization. What are the behaviors? And anybody that has ever tried to change somebody's behavior fully understands that that's a fool's errand. And I'm speaking here to husbands and wives. Okay. I'm going to change their behavior. Yeah, it doesn't work. How I describe something determines how I experience it. How I experience it generates behavior. If you want a shift in behavior, which is what we always are looking for when we're introducing change into an organization or when we start to scale an organization, whether it's the chapter or whether it's the businesses that we're operating,
Mhm.
we got to have different behavior in order to get different results. Trying to shift behavior doesn't work real well. Change the description process that people are working with, you change how they feel about what's going on, which generates a different type of behavioral outcome, which produces a different result. What we're looking at here from a leadership perspective is how do you shift mindset, that defining process, the habituated set of beliefs, attitudes, and assumptions that are subconscious, out of sight, out of mind. That's what we're looking to actually interact with. And we've got a very specific model that begins to address that. And we call it ACT. Leaders cause movement. I mean, that's probably the simplest definition I can come up with about what a leader does. They cause movement. And ideally, that movement is organized towards and pointing towards a possibility, a new future, something that we'd like to see happen out there that hasn't happened before. Um, just a real quick aside here from a kind of a reference. I started doing some work with Nokia, the telephone company, the telephony company, back in the mid 1990s when they were selling rubber tires, rubber boots, uh, cable, television sets, farming implements. I mean, they were a conglomerate. And by the way, they had this little tiny division that sold handsets, and they had helped Ericsson develop the GSM standard. When I started working with them, and I was working with the CEO at the time, and the president of their telephony and handset divisions, and we were looking at what kind of leaders do we need to develop in order to have this thing be what they thought it could be, because they were divesting themselves of everything that did not have a telephony component to it. So that future state was foreign to everybody in the company pretty much. And how do you actually traverse that territory? How do you cause that kind of movement? So what we've done is we've actually looked at what did we do there as an example. And I've done work with Apple, I've done work with Microsoft, I've done work with petrochemical in South Africa and all kinds of stuff. This ACT model is a blueprint for empowering leadership and growth. And it really takes the form of action. Leaders cause action, they cause movement. And so the acronym that we've developed here is called ACCCT, and it actually stands for 5 fundamental pieces. And we were very successful with Nokia. I ended up spending about 12 years as an external consultant working with them and trained over 3,000, almost 4,000 of their senior managers as they began to grow their organization, specifically focused on telephony. The ACT model identifies 5 components here: awareness, context, communication, mastery, commitment, and trust. And very basic definitions here. Awareness. This is noticing what I'm noticing. When I talk about habituated mindset, patterns of behaving, patterns of thinking, belief patterns, all of these things get embedded and literally reified in the subconscious of most people's minds. And what we want to do is be able to utilize awareness. And awareness is, those of you that are familiar with emotional intelligence modalities, awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. And according to Goldman, 95% of a leader's effectiveness is organized around self-awareness and awareness of others, the situational awareness and awareness. The power in this has to do with awareness illuminates choices. Awareness uncovers things that we didn't notice before. Awareness by itself is not enough, but we begin to notice what we're noticing, where our attention is going. This is important in an organization that's growing or looking to scale, because we call this culture. Culture has its own life. And you'll hear people say, well, we tried that before, it won't work. Well, that's a past reference. Belief systems are in place, experiences are in place. You now have a new now, but you're still dealing with the past. Awareness sheds some light on things so you can begin to see possibilities in ways that you've never seen before. It's the foundation of leadership, recognizing thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors and how they influence current actions and decisions that are being made. If we're not noticing, we're doomed to repeat the past. And our future becomes little iterations of what's gone before. What we're looking to do is phase shift, transformational shifting. This is how you end up scaling an organization. Context, it's meaning generation. Okay. Yeah, everything has a contextual frame for it. Everything in an organization is referenced against contextual framing. And mindset is a context. Now, a very simple and crude example of this is you wake up one day and because you love to be effective and efficient, you've decided that you're going to move your bed into the kitchen because it's closer to the coffee pot. And you're going to cut out about 15 steps and aggregated over the year. You've just saved a whole bunch of time. Okay, now that's the business case. Okay, so your husband or wife or your significant other comes home at the end of the day and they see a bed in the kitchen and they go, "What the hell is this?" And you go, "Oh God, I got to tell you about the neatest thing in the world." And you give them the business case, you give them the rationale, the logic for why the bed should be in the kitchen. They look at you and go, "You're out of your mind. Put it back where it belongs." Now, what I'm illustrating here is the kitchen is a context that contains certain types of furniture, certain types of equipment that is appropriate for that room, for that contextual overlay. Bed does not match context of kitchen. It just doesn't. So I don't care how well you state the business case for having the bed in the kitchen, it's going to get kicked out. This happens all the time in organizations. Leaders will make the business case. They've got a logic, and it's a pretty good logic for why this makes sense, but they don't address the contextual frame of the business, of the operation, of the environment in which they're working. And as a consequence, people kind of look at you and go, "Yeah, okay, you're the boss. We'll just kind of give this 15 days. And around the water cooler, people are, the stupidest idea I've ever heard." Context hasn't been shifted. And it's not been shifted because awareness hasn't been brought to the table in a way that illuminates what's actually in play. How you illuminate context, how you actually begin uncovering it has to do with communication. Most people are accidental communicators. They are not intentional communicators. And here's an interesting correlation. The purpose of leadership is to produce a result. The purpose of communication is also to produce a result. Leadership and communication essentially are the same thing, at the end of the day. Your effectiveness as a leader fundamentally comes down to how well you've mastered the process of communicating. And I'm not talking about talking. The way we work with communication from a leadership perspective has to do with the definition of communication. Communication is the ways, plural, the ways we work out common meaning with one another. Until you have common meaning, which is context specific, unless you have common meaning, you don't have a basis to move. Movement becomes scattered, it becomes chaotic, and you're basically dead in the water. Moves us into commitment. This is where, and we've got a definition that we're going to show you here in just a moment, but commitment has to do with ownership transfer. It's now not just my idea, it's now our idea. And it's the distinction between compliance, you're the boss, I have to do this, and commitment. This is a great idea. I want to be a part of this. Night and day difference in those two distinctions. And then the final piece has to do with trust, which is a recognition that every organization, and I don't care the size or scope of it, is just a collection of people that are in relationship. That's all any organization at the end of the day is. Now, the obvious relational dynamic is interactive, interpersonal. My relationship with you, my relationship with my boss, my relationship with my peers. That's the tip of the iceberg. Relationship with vision, relationship with values, relationship with work process, relationship with customers, relationship with my chair. What's fascinating about this is to the degree all of these relationships are working well, I've got a pretty good shot at being successful. If any of these varied relationships go off the rail, everything kind of gets bollocksed up because people's attention is drawn towards that relational upset, that perturbation. So leaders in the way that we work with them have a large duty, literally a duty to attend to the relational quality in the organization. And that's built on a foundation of trust. It's built on a foundation of trust. That's how alignment begins to occur. That's how you can, actually use conflict effectively, all of that stuff. So the ACT model is our shorthand way of saying, here's how you actually master the process of leading. That's how you master it. So the next slide here actually begins to move us into the definition process of what we're looking at here, which has to do with the self-assessment. So
Right.
my seasoned partner here is going to take this to the next level.
That's good. I love those. One thing that, if I can, Doug, is I believe I need to have permission as either a co-host or a
You're
little
good to
higher
go.
privilege, because I can't upload the PDF at this point.
You're now the co-host.
Bam! Thank you so much.
You
All right.
demand. Look how
Well,
powerful and influential you are. It's the
I know.
definition of leadership.
Goodness gracious. And it's telling me as I'm trying to upload this PDF, transfer PDF files is restricted by your account admin. I'm not sure what that means. I don't know, Jim, if you can help me with that, but that's I'm trying to upload a PDF. Otherwise, we'll resort to I will put the PDF up and we can walk through it together. Let's see if we can. Let me try it one more time. No, I am restricted from uploading the worksheet.
Well, that's a bummer.
It is for the moment. Yeah, it
Okay, let
is.
me
You
look
what?
into that.
I'm
What
sorry,
was
say
that,
it
Jim?
again.
Let me look into that for a moment.
All right, thank you. So what I'm going to do is
Just put it up on the screen.
we're gonna do how everything works whenever you run into these kinds of moments. Not a challenge, but we'll take a moment. So the PDF that we'll share with you, I'm gonna go back and reshare my screen, is really comprised of three parts. And when Blaine and I teach this, and we'll talk a little bit more about how it works inside of the mastermind, but in the 5-day challenge, when we work through this, there's an assessment. So the very first page of this PDF contains the definition of what Blaine just talked about, and it's a lot of information to provide to all of you kind of very quickly as we're talking about the awareness, context, communication, mastery, commitment, and trust. But in the assessment, it's an opportunity for you then to, based on each of these domains, answer some questions. And the questions are: I have a regular stillness practice that keeps me centered. I consistently pause before initiating a reflective response. But when we think of leadership in the context of mindset, this is our opportunity to go back and reflect on, here are the muscles that I need to develop. There's no right or wrong or top of mind, good or bad, but these are the things that I need to focus on from a development perspective. And then based on the results from that assessment, and I think what I may do is see if I can't just very quickly create a link so you can download it if we can't attach it, because I would like for you to have this today. It's an opportunity then to come back and answer a couple of questions. What dimension is your strongest? Where are the strongest? As leaders, it's very important that we reflect periodically and on a consistent basis on our strengths and areas that we want to tune and focus. Right? So weaknesses become muscles. So where are you the strongest? What dimensions need the most improvement? How do your strengths in one dimension support your team and organization? So if you improve, why does it matter? What is for the sake of what that lives behind that improvement? And what impact could improving your weakest dimension have on your leadership effectiveness? Because when we are, we neglected to put our definition of leadership on the screen. it would help if we had done that. And then, of course, what dimension are you going to focus on? You can't do them all at once. But where's your focus going to be? And then what's the goal what's the intention, the goal behind focusing on that dimension? And that's the purpose of this worksheet was to be able to, for us to take 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and have you an opportunity to go to reflect and then come back just for a moment or two and give you an opportunity to share what you may have discovered through that exercise around reflecting, particularly on mindset as it relates to this model. So I'm going
So,
to stop.
you know, why don't we just put the second page up there, where the actual,
There we
there we
go.
go. Yeah. And folks, just take yeah, we blocked out about 7 minutes for this, but just take some
Yeah.
time, given that we can't put it in the chat area right now as a PDF, but just take some time and just assess yourself real quickly here. You're not going to obviously be able to check boxes or anything, but just kind of read through these different points and, well, how would you answer this? Just kind of notice what you're noticing here. You're causing movement all the time. It's impossible not to cause movement as a leader. What kind of movement are you causing? So we'll just kind of give you some quiet time here. I'll stop yammering and just kind of sort through those and go, yeah, I could work, use some work there. Or, hey, I'm pretty good at that.
There you
Just
go.
kind of real quick, top of mind. Catherine, I see your note about sharing it via chat. We can't actually upload the PDF in chat right now.
Right.
So,
I'm going to make it bigger though. There we go. Hopefully, Catherine, that helps. Similarly with my eyes when I'm looking on
Yeah,
display.
it's better now.
is it better? Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. I'll see if this works.
There you go. Perfect. Take about one more minute, I think.
That's good timing. We're at about a minute 30 seconds left.
Okay.
About another 30 seconds. just about 10 seconds.
Get all the juice out of this. Yeah.
I know. It's just a lot of questions to reflect on very quickly. Okay.
All right. So as you quickly went through those, first thought, best thought, kind of what came to mind? What should these seem to be the ones that you're, and anybody, please feel free to answer this, but I'm pretty good in this area. This is an area that I could actually use a little shoring up. Anything seemed to pop out there as you did this in your mind, given you didn't have pen and paper?
Yeah, the first thing that I noticed is on the awareness piece, none of those selection apply to me. So I put non-applicable. I'm not seeing myself in any of those.
Interesting. Okay. So we got a lot to work with, Gummy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll play with that. Yeah. Anybody else? Just first, noticing.
Love your framework. Actually, thanks very much. It's pretty familiar to me because I'm working with that for quite some time. For me, awareness is really the key. It's a different level because without awareness, you won't grow in the other fields. Actually,
Absolutely,
so that's important. And what I realized in my life is that the art of listening is very important. It's also a key. Because not listening to respond, which we very often have in meetings, but listening to understand, not answering, maybe even leaving the question at itself to see the power of the question to unfold is very special. And that's the key also for learning, for long-term learning. So it all belongs together, the three. Yeah, but
absolutely.
love it very much. Thanks very much for sharing, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank.
Well said, Frank.
Yeah, for me, when I have an idea and inspired myself with that idea, the challenge for me is put it in the right context. I love the example of the bed in the kitchen, and at first how impractical that sounds and is, but to really think through the context to be able to put the power of the idea in the right setting, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. In that whole notion, Francis, and thank you for that. Context that has it's relational. It's, I have a relationship with kitchen, would be one way of thinking about that. And in my mind, I've got things that belong there. I've got relationship with my stovetop. I've got relationship with my dishwasher. I've got a bed disrupts those relationships. And here's the difficulty that leaders run into when they introduce change into an organizational setting is oftentimes it's not with the change itself. It's with the disruption to relationships that the change causes. So I put that bed in there. There's a disruption to the existing relationship, the contextual relationships that people have. We think people are having a problem with the change. No, they really aren't. They're having problems getting squared away with the relational upset. And that's where you get resistance and pushback. Is I like things to be comfortable. I like things to be familiar and all of that sort of stuff. And I don't care that it makes sense. It's just not comfortable. And until it gets comfortable, people are going to push back on it. Yeah. Thank you very much, Francis. That's good.
Yeah, very much so. And you want that kind of you want that conflict.
Yeah, you want that conflict. And this is in when we talk about mindset, I'm going to just toss this one out real quick here.
Yeah.
People have a mindset around conflict. Conflict is meant to be resolved. That's an operating mindset that many people have, many leaders and managers have. Conflict needs to get resolved. No, it doesn't. Conflict needs to be used. Everybody just rub your hands together real quick, if you would, please. Just rub your hands. This is participation. When you do that, you start to feel warmth. Friction, conflict, another word for conflict is friction. Friction generates heat. Enough heat is cleansing. And enough heat also generates light. So conflict has the potential of generating light to illuminate possibilities if it's used appropriately. And it also can create enough heat to, to actually melt away or move away, cleanse what doesn't need to be there any longer. So you want, as a leader, to be able to understand, how do I use conflict? Not how do I get rid of it. I want to be able to utilize it. I want to bring it up. And that is a contextual frame. That is a shift in thinking. That is a mindset shift, that if you can make it well and develop the skills around that, things start to change in a very interesting way. Yeah. So all of that starts to come into play here. Doland had mentioned our definition of leadership, and I think we don't have a slide for this, which is fine,
We
but I
don't,
can
but-
quickly just tell you how we define leadership this way. It's the process of influencing others in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. That's the definition. I'll break that down a little bit. Influencing. Command and control goes out the door. You're about influencing. It's state of being. How do I need to be as a leader in order to I walk in the door. I walk in the office. Before I've opened my mouth, I am generating movement. That's called influence. It's my state of being. People are reacting, responding, and moving just based on my presence. Is it serving me or not? So we spend a lot of time in our work with our leaders that we work with around this state of being question. How do I need to be, and who do I need to be? So influencing in order to co-create. Co-creation and ownership transfers. It's not my idea anymore. It's now mind share. You now own it. It's something that you go, ooh, this is kind of cool. I'd like to have this. Okay. Co-creation. Coordinated movement. If you're working well as a leader, you are taking your organization, you're scaling it into unknown territory, places it's never been before. Guaranteed you're going to have people stepping on each other's toes because it's unfamiliar territory. Coordinated movement is not about harmony. It's about the judicious and appropriate use of conflict that allows for movement to continue without people getting their knickers in a knot. Okay. And then the final piece has to do with worthy ideal. This is not a 10% increase in revenue.
No.
It's not a 7% increase in market share. A worthy ideal is the difference between motivation and inspiration. A worthy ideal lives inside people. And I can't tell you what your worthy ideal is. But I can, as a leader, I can ask you, if we achieve this, what does it make possible for you that is worth it for you? What do you get to have, do, or be that you wouldn't get to have, do, or be if we didn't do this or get there, that lofty goal, whatever it might be? This is one of the magical things that we did with Nokia. We didn't really, finally define the vision. What's important about vision is not what it is from a wordsmithing perspective. It's what it makes possible. That's the importance of a utilized well vision. What does it make possible? And you can't tell people what it is. You have to ask them what it is. That's where that worthy ideal comes into play. And if it's a worthy ideal, you're going to see commitment, not compliance. You're going to see innovation and creativity, not just iterations of what's gone before. So influencing in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. That's the definition that we work with, and the ACT model is how we go about achieving that.
There you go. And I put that into the chat just so everybody has it. And I think that's an important piece.
So do you want to a little Q&A here before we jump into the last
let's
half
take
of
let's
this?
take a couple
we got
of
about
minutes
10 minutes
what they've learned, and then the rest of it is
or what questions have been generated.
straightforward. By the way, just as a, before we do Q&A, just when you think of this, when you copy and paste that definition of leadership down, it's not just a definition of leadership, it's how you aspire to perform your role as a leader. Who am I influencing? How am I influencing? How am I showing up? Who do I need to be? Who are the others? What does it mean to co-create so that I'm not just doing command and control? What are we coordinating? Because there's internal and external dynamics to coordination. What is the movement that we're seeking to move forward? And am I telling them the worthy ideal, or am I engaging them in the worthy ideal? And I think, I forget who said it earlier, there was a word that was used, and maybe Francis, it was you that said it, but the difference between inspiration and motivation.
That was me.
There was, well, that was you. You said that, but I thought I heard it also in the group. So I'll give you, Blaine said it. But when you think of it in that light, then it becomes applicable. The most important thing whenever we find a definition or a rule or a law or those is how do we begin to apply that? So, good. All right.
Okay. Now, if there's no pressing questions, we'll just begin to, turn the corner here.
Okay. All right.
So in our conversation with Doug, this was some of the information that we actually brought to the table. And it was the question that we actually looked for here was, what's the pain point? What is something that is aspirational with the chamber? And one of them was just embedded in your mission statement, which has to do with leadership and growing highly effective, developing highly effective leaders. Is also expansion, reaching more people. So that has chapter implications as well. How do I grow my chapters? Accountability drives outcomes, and Einstein famously said, until something nothing happens until something moves.
Or I show the slide, or show the slide,
or you show the slide. Yeah. But the idea here is, as leaders, trying to develop on our own oftentimes is very problematic. And I know there's Globinars on a real regular cadence available within Chamber. But we were looking, and this is the conversation that Doug and Doland and I were having. Yeah, how do we bring something that is very specifically focused on developing high impact leaders in an organization, given that most of the people that are on this call, as well as most of the people in the chamber, are effective already. I mean, and this kind of goes all the way back to the very beginning. We're not interested in developing better leaders. We're really interested in developing different leaders that have the capacity, the awareness, and the ability to actually generate transformational changes in their organization, not iterative changes. And as you look around the world today, that whole notion of transformative change, how do we actually get in front of that? How do we lead that process? So what we have is an opportunity here that we want to talk to you about, that is around something that we call a mindset mastermind. How do we actually master this thing called mindset? 95% of behavior comes out of mindset, 95% of it. So what is it? How do I actually, as a leader, begin to leverage it? How do I illuminate it in my organization? Because every organization has a mindset itself. It's called culture. And to your point, Jim, mindset is a decision. It actually informs the decision. Oftentimes that informational process, that informing process, is out of awareness. We just end up making a decision and we're not clear about where did that come from. So we want to be able to choose well. We can't choose well unless there's illumination, unless there's greater awareness. So what we're bringing to the table, and we're going to be doing this a couple of times a year with the chamber, is a leadership mindset mastermind. This came out of originally work that I was doing with Nokia, work that I was doing with the World Business Academy. I'm a member of the board of directors there, have been for a number of years. The World Business Academy, just a background piece here, Some of you may be familiar with just capital. It's a new way of measuring how businesses actually perform on the world stage. Are they just companies? Not necessarily what's the ROI, what's the market cap, what's, those are traditional, gap accounting metrics. We're looking at how does a business, from a social responsibility perspective, from the ability to impact environments, and not just from a green perspective, but impact holistically. The purpose of business is to uplift the experience of being alive on the planet. That's the purpose of business. Now, you do that well, you're going to make a lot of money. But the purpose of business is to uplift the experience, provide the opportunity for uplift to occur. The mastermind program that we've developed came out of work that I was doing originally with Nokia would be a great example, but also, Microsoft, Apple, oh goodness, AstraZeneca. I mean, in pharma and Petra, in finance, fintech, I did work with Amex around this as well. We put together and codified that exploration process. This is the 5th year we're running this mastermind program, and this is the first time we're offering it specifically to an organization such as Global Chamber.
Right.
So it's a 52-week program. It's a full year. And the full year is focused exclusively on developing awareness around mindset. The first 3 months we spend looking at, and this is the ACT model, we spend looking at awareness, and we unbundle awareness from the perspective of consciousness. What does consciousness have to do with anything? What is it, how do you begin to practice noticing more effectively? And then how do we remain in flow? That whole notion of being in flow. That's all part and parcel of awareness. Now, these are positioned discreetly, but they all come together as a bespoke sort of a process. Month 4 and 5 is all around context. How do you actually, as a leader, go about effectively defining it in a way that allows for people to actually generate effective behavior? So it's looking at meaning making as well as the invitation process. And invitation has to do with inclusion. How do we get people involved? So when we're looking at co-creating, this is where context becomes very important. Months 6 through 8, all around communication mastery. We'll spend 3 months on the notion of communication. Not how do I speak, not how do I present, but how do I generate meaning? So clarity, common meaning, influence. The influence component is embedded deeply in the communication process. I don't communicate about something. I am that thing that I'm communicating. That's where state of being comes into play. So 6, 7, and 8, 3 months. How do you master this? Month 9 and 10, all focused on commitment. Personal mastery. The difference between compliance and the difference in commitment is enormous. This is where you end up with inspiration as opposed to motivation.
Yes.
And then the last has to do with trust. How do we create alignment, and how do we effectively utilize conflict in the organization? 2 months spent only on trust. So that's the roadmap. It's 52 weeks. We meet once a week. Doland and I facilitate a weekly meeting. It's a curated community. We are very picky about who's in there. There's a cap on the membership. People are, interviewed before they come in. What is it that you want to produce for yourself? How are you going to interact? And here's what's expected, that sort of thing. There's a mastermind component to this, obviously, because it's called a mastermind. We teach for an hour a week, one of these topical areas, and then you meet with a mastermind cohort for about a week, or for about an hour. And the mastermind cohorts are limited in size to about 4 to 5 people. And they rotate over the course of the year. So you're getting different eyes on what it is that you're working with. You're getting a different set of eyes, a different set of ears. So people are listening differently and they're seeing differently. And it's a mastermind. I mean, if you think about Napoleon Hill, the whole notion of his mastermind group. That's what we've embedded in this. So the teaching is mentor guided. This is what we talk about. And personal growth is on your terms. I mean, you bring to the table what it is that you want to be working towards. And it's a process that is unfolding over the course of the year. Like I said, this is the 5th year we're doing this. We've got people in the group that have been there for, two of them are going to be in there this is their 5th year doing it. They keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And some of the folks that have been in the program before are actually set up to be mentors of the mastermind cohorts. So they, it's not just, here's your people, go forth and talk. There's a structure to it. We've got mentors that actually lead those conversations, those mastermind sessions. So strengthens global leadership capacity. That's the idea here. Yeah. Then this is for the sake of what? For the chamber. Yeah, so strengthens global leadership capacity, moves leadership development from ideas into a very curated action plan, and it differentiates global chamber from other business networks, such as Vistage and some of these other organizations that are out there. YPO. This is not a networking group. Be very clear about that. It's not a networking group. This is solely focused on mindset development, mindset curation in service of effective leadership. That's all we're concerned with. How do you become more dramatically, transformatively effective as a leader? Doland, anything to say there?
Well, the thing I can say is having participated on both sides, both originally as, hey, I'm going to go do this, and participated in co-taught and in working in partnership with Blaine, I have had the pleasure of putting my retired a year ago in April. Prior to that point in time, putting my teams through the mastermind, all with the intention of mastering mindset, the who, what, where, how component. There's 1,000 ways to go skin that cat, to use a colloquialism. So the mindset really is focused on that. It is a working mindset. It is a mindset where we meet, and we also meet in cohorts, and we leave with tools every week that you can immediately go back and apply. And it's tools that you could apply across all of the components of the ACCCT model as it moves along. So Frank, I saw that you raised your hand. So
yeah, thanks very much. Sorry to interrupt.
Pleasure. No, please.
But you said before, and that was very interesting, that without awareness, we are thinking from the past. We have this iterative linear thinking. And as Otto Scharmer says, think from the future. Now, let me challenge you. Isn't your leadership program, which I really love, it's really very sophisticated, we love to do that, but is it not linear? Is it not coming from the past? Because at the moment, I'm very much into AI, agentic AI, in terms of how leadership style, how mindset, how leadership organizations will change. So putting a totally different lens on that one and coming from a different direction. And I don't see really any experience because it's just too new about that. But they may change. The question is, how will this change or might change your program? Or do you need, let's say, a different approach on that one to transfer your expertise in combination of the future to come with AI in that?
Great question. We are not, and I'll just speak personally, when we put the program together, this is not a therapeutic exploration.
No.
We recognize that there is a mindset structure that is organized around past beliefs, past experiences and that sort of stuff. We're not interested in necessarily changing those. What we are interested in is developing a mindset that works effectively for what we're dealing with now, in service of what we'd like to have in the future. We take on this notion of time in the Mindset Mastermind. Time is a fascinating component of a leader's toolbox. Most people, to your point, think in cause-effect linearity. And that's not what we're looking at working with here. We're looking at phase shifting. All there is I'm going to get esoteric here for a moment. All there is now. There is no future. There is no past. All there is now. Everything works on a frequency band. Tesla talked about, you want to understand the nature of the universe, begin to appreciate and understand and curate and use utility around frequency and vibration. There's no, everything works on frequency. So when we begin to shift our thinking, literally shift our thinking, everything, we now move to a different frequency band, a different vibrational frequency. Anything that's on that frequency band is now available to us and available to our organization. We don't have to get rid of the past. Awareness of the past, awareness of that stuff, we want to be able to uncouple from it. I'm not going to go back and fix it. I'm not going to go back and change it. That's not the intent here. I want to uncouple from it. And I can't uncouple until I'm aware. And that's the distinction that we're trying to bring to this.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to describe that in a minute and a half.
It is. That was a good stab at it, though. That was a good stab at it. And I appreciate the question, Frank, because I'm an engineer by trade, originally an engineer. And I'm fascinated with AI and generative AI. So I've built my own GPTs and I do things inside of AI all the time. But at the end of the day, to Blaine's point, not to re-echo that again, I could just say ditto. And particularly around, even with AI as the tool that AI is becoming for us to help us do things, there still is that need and that component for mindset, that human interaction, because we are still moving in the world of a collection of relationships within the body of our organizations. So we still have that piece too. How they intersect, that's going to be fun to explore. So
we'll have a new relation, which is the relation to the AI agents.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
indeed
to bridge both of that one. The human relation will stay, of course, but we will have another relation, and they need to be aligned.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm working with a CEO of an AI firm right now. It's a spatial AI. It's three-dimensional AI. It's not two-dimensional linear large language model. Language models are a linear construct. And when you start bringing spatiality into it, 3 dimensions into it, you start working with time in a very interesting way, as well as space. And that, it's fascinating work. Absolutely. So I'm very cognizant of our timeline here. So we're going to invite you to have a conversation with Doland and myself. Okay. It kind of goes back to the notion that this is a curated group. If you have any interest whatsoever, even a little bit of it, give us a call. Okay. You can take this bit.ly link, Global Chamber, and it'll take you to a landing page where you can actually read more about the mastermind in more detail. But it also has a booking link where you can schedule a call, about a 20 to 30-minute call with Doland and I, and we can answer any question you've got about this particular mastermind program. Or you can scan the QR code with your phone. But we'd love to have a conversation with you about this. This mastermind program is going to be part and parcel of Global Chamber's education quiver, if you will. I mean, it's an arrow that goes in the quiver now. So it's available. We want to make sure that you have access to getting your questions answered. And if it's not for you, no harm, no foul. That's fine. It may be for somebody in your organization. Okay. We're looking to develop leaders across the board that have impact, that are interested in up-leveling their game so that they're not just getting iterative improvement, they're getting transformative improvement in their in their life as well as in their business, and in the chapters that you guys are leading as well. So that's where it's at. And Doug, I'm going to turn it back over to you here to kind of put a bow on this.
Brilliant. There are 2 other links. Feel free to link in there and connect in and speak to the guys about the next steps. There is another session like this on Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, so same time on Monday. If you'd like to go through and listen to it again and fully digest, feel free to join us on Monday. There's also a link on the Global Chamber site on June 30th for the program and a little bit more information, so you can check in there. Contact me as well. Feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to talk through and listen to any questions that you have. I love the question, Frank, of leadership, fundamentally the question of leadership. And it raises to me the question of, does leadership change? I remember as my career started, the internet started to come on, right? And all sorts of things have transpired in the last 40 years. And certainly AI is significant, perhaps the most significant change of all time. Does leadership change? I'm not sure. I think probably George Washington and Winston Churchill and Pierre S. DuPont, who was kind of close to me because I work for the DuPont company, the characterizations of those leaders then and leaders now, from Apple to Microsoft to Nokia, as mentioned, to some of the top leading companies now. There are fundamentals of leadership that stay with them. And that's one of the things today that I was refreshed on, Blaine, in terms of listening to you and some of the real basic principles of leadership that we don't all have down. and we all don't have all of the pieces put together. And that's why, having been a Vistage member and a believer in Vistage, and now a believer in what you're doing, I know that I can benefit from this. And I know that nearly everyone I know can benefit from this, because it's not just the theory or the ideas. You're very focused in on action and practical application for each of us, and the peer aspect. Isn't there a peer aspect in what you end up working with here?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm such a believer in that, from the Vistage experience now transferred over. And so in my mind, having now seen you work for 5-6 days, and including today, I'm impressed by certainly your background. That's great. What really impresses me is what I see right in front of me. And so thank you. And I'm just so honored and pleased that you're part of this and that you're part of Global Chamber. And thank you all for participating today. Reach out along the way, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks, everybody.